Good morning, Robert Rossick.
Good morning, Brian Lolaton.
What's happening, sir?
Well, I don't quite know. I think I want to rant today.
I think we should rant because we're
Yeah.
usually trying to be so damn professional all the time.
Yeah, so we're going to rant. And today we have on set our producer, Mason Garing.
Mason Gary.
Hello.
And also on set is Lumiere Rostick.
Hi.
So those are the voices you're going to hear in the background that are going to be ranting along with us.
Absolutely. So feel free to join into the conversation because it will make it more interactive,
Yeah.
Especially if you're watching. You won't be able to see them. So it'll be a little weird, but
It's all right. Now, you had a pet peeve that you mentioned earlier today.
I did.
And what was that pet peeve?
I think people today, especially the younger generation, they're not running hard enough at the things that they say they want to do.
Yes. And an example of that put forth from you is what?
I think there's you and I are clearly over 30 years old.
Yes,
right?
clearly.
And we decided we wanted to do something and we created an opportunity for it.
And that's because we had to.
We had to,
Right.
but like that used to be kind of like a young state of mind, right? You say, let me figure out what I want to do and then run at it.
Correct. I mean,
Right.
there was no internet and all that kind of stuff
Right. No.
around at the time.
You had to fashion it together.
Yes.
And you put it together. And that's what we do here every week. We fashion it together.
Mhm.
But what I'm seeing a lot from specifically younger generation
Mhm.
is they're not looking for those opportunities. The opportunities are there,
Yeah,
but they're not running towards them. They're waiting for the opportunity to knock on their door and for them to decide if they want to answer or not. You
And
know what I mean?
that's an entitlement mentality.
I think so.
And I'm talking about even the poor.
And yeah,
I'm talking about the third world poor Americans have that same entitlement. You know
Absolutely.
why? Because they
tell me.
all have the internet.
Right.
And they all think that the world is their oyster and that oyster is going to come swimming up to them.
right. And but the thing is, it kind of is our oyster, right? But we got to go and get it.
That's the problem,
Right.
is that we have to actually, at least in our time, we had to make calls, call on people we didn't know,
Right.
and continue to do that,
Yeah.
and to let people know that we're out there,
Mhm.
and this is the service and or business we
Right.
have to offer. But the generation that are coming up now say, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to play my video game and I'm going to chill, and the world is going to come knocking at my door.
Right. And you know what? Even worse, right? Because and this isn't one of those situations where I'm just harking on the young people, because there's a lot of things I think that they do that I learn a lot from.
Sure.
So
Such as?
How to use the technology proficiently. I think in certain instances, when it comes to actually staying active and putting thoughts out, I think the young people do it more consistently than we do. They don't have a problem putting ideas out as much.
But you know why? I mean, and my thought as to why? Because they're putting it out globally. And that means they're putting it out to the world. So the world is not going to come giving them a critique in the sense that that's going to be constructive. The world is going to give them a critique in a point where they can always dismiss it by saying they're just trolling me.
Okay.
Whereas when you actually go face to face with someone, and especially someone you're trying to get on board with as a job or some kind of potential engagement, then you have to listen to the honesty that that person is giving back to you. And online and internet is all trolling, so you can always weed those out and say they're just trolling. So,
I think the part that I don't understand, and this goes into our generation as well, is we're so stuck a lot of the times on making the immediate dollar.
Yeah,
Sometimes we let
are.
the opportunity pass, and I've been guilty of it for a split second. Of this person looks like they can't pay me, or they're not offering me money, so I'm not even going to mess with that situation. And I think a lot of the times we pass up offers or we pass up opportunities that we can learn from to get to that next stage in our life but we pass them up because of the fact that we're looking for money right now.
You know,
right?
but we started this thing off by pointing a finger at them, the young generation. But then there were things that we screwed up on our own. And you're right. One of those things is because we want the money. We need the money because we grew up in a time where we didn't have any. So that's what we're chasing in a sense. And you're right. The younger generations, they're not chasing money so much.
Right.
But on our end of it, we let things go by, as you mentioned, rather than offer up a strategy for that. And one of the strategies can be, and I think you mentioned this one time earlier, is that instead of offering someone something for free,
right?
In a sense, because if you offer it for free,
no, not for free, but for cheap.
For cheap, that's what it was.
Yeah.
If you offer someone something for cheap, then that's what you are. But if you offer someone for free, then as an introduction to your to the relationship, that's different than saying, okay, it's going to cost you this much, but I'm going to give you a discount for that much. And so that person is going to expect that discount every single time.
Right. And I live by that now. I would rather do an intro to a relationship for somebody for free. You know, I would rather go into, and I just did this recently with, there's a group in St. Pete called, there's a mobile installation, a moving installation that's going to start happening in the Pinellas County area, and in Pinellas County, and it's called Spacecraft. I heard about this project, and I was like, I love this idea. I want to jump on board. What can I do?
Correct. Yeah.
So I reached out and I was like, hey, I don't see any proof of anybody doing your marketing or storytelling and documentation of this project. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And they immediately, it went to, okay, cool. And then it was, we don't have a lot of money for it. And I was like, that's fine. I like the project.
Correct.
So this is what I'll do. On the days you're available, I'm going to show up. I'm going to shoot some video, or I'm going to show up and I'm just going to have a meeting with you and just talk with you guys and figure out, just do what I do. Start dissecting and investigating what this storyline is supposed to be and who these people are telling the story. Fast forward to now the checks are being written and they're like, hey, thank you for adding value, and we want to make sure you get paid for all the time that you put in leading up to this point, right? But I don't think that is available if you're thinking, hey, I need to get paid now. If you can't pay me now, then forget about it. Go find somebody else. And you missed that opportunity to network, to be a part of a community of people, because our biggest selling points a lot of the times are other people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And if you can stay top of mind of other people's, stay top of mind of your community, then you're never having to put so much effort into the advertisement or the marketing of yourself.
And the thing about it is that we don't go into our communities in order to seek business. We seem like it seems as though we have to go way on the other side of the world.
Right.
But our community is in need of business just like anybody else. I mean, the lady next door to me, she buys toilet paper just like I do. They go to the grocery store just like I do, and eventually they need pictures just like I need them.
Right.
So that's the difference, I think, in my world, is that realizing the opportunity of networking and getting together with the people that are closest to me, and then letting them spread the word outward.
Yeah, I think there's one shift with regard to community that the younger generation is understanding that we don't have, and this is why sometimes we always say these kids are crazy.
Yeah,
and
they are
losing
crazy.
their mind. Well, they are.
Aren't you guys crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to speak up so they can't see you. But community for them is online, right?
Yeah.
Community for them is the people you know in LA that you didn't know before. You know what I mean? Like you can meet people all over the world and they're like you, and you can know someone in China and Japan and all these different places, and they're your family. They're your tribe of people.
But that's also can be a negative thing, because when people reach out and they find their people and their communities online, it's so easy to find everyone who has the same exact way of thinking and the same exact, not experiences, but understanding that you do, versus people in your community who may live right down the street from you, but are so different, but you never interact with them because you never take that step to interact with someone who's different than you and who has a different experience than you.
I like that. I've never really thought about it from that instance. Like I'm always trying to figure out why is it working differently, but I've never really thought about it from that standpoint, that in those communities, you're only buying into people who exactly think the way that you think, and there's no diversity in thought, is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. The internet is such a diverse place, but they're all silos of different diverse people that aren't interacting with each other, which is partially why social media is so polarized, because people are only interacting with like-minded people.
Right, right.
And that's the thing. The thing about the person in your neighborhood, the person that's down the street that has a business and you're then supporting that business and they are supporting your business, is that they can be of a different mindset. But you're aware of that because you're interacting with them.
Yeah, because you get a chance to see it up front.
Yeah, you see it up front, and then you can have it work for you.
Right.
My biggest thing that I happened to me growing up, not so much growing up as an adult, was that I befriended a Klansman.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah, I befriended a Klansman because You
weren't a police officer then?
No, I wasn't. I was a security guy. And
so Spike Lee movie was about you?
Well,
I mean, you were close enough.
Yeah, the whole thing about it
was
was that this guy wanted to keep me away, and he wanted to keep me away from his area. But I persisted, and I got invited in. And once I got invited in, I was able to sit and have coffee with him and chat about his world and introduce him to mine. And at the end of that whole thing, he says, you're not like those other black people. And I go, I'm very much like those other black people. And I reminded him that he is not so much like those other white people.
Right.
And he said he is. But the point is that we got a chance to break bread and sit down, have over a cup of coffee, and exchange ideas, where that he is not so afraid of me and me afraid of him.
Right. And I think, do you think that was because you haven't told what the circumstances was under that, but there was something you wanted out of that situation?
Yeah. I wanted coffee.
Right. And you wanted coffee because
I was cold.
It was cold outside.
I was stuck in a cold area outside. Right. And he was in the inside.
Right.
This nice heated house. And the only coffee pot was in that house. So I had to strategize as to how to get in that house. Right. But that's the point, is that as a businessman, I have to strategize as to how to get involved with your business so that I can help support that with mine.
Have you heard of this book called Think and Grow Rich?
No, I have not, but I like the concept.
I want to gift this book to you. I want to buy another copy and give it to you. I've read it, and I was explaining to Mason. I read it the first time.
And Mason, did he really read it?
Yeah. And in fact, it was the first book of my adult life outside of audiobooks that I read cover to cover. Right. There's been books since then, but that was the first book of my adult life that I read cover to cover. I had been just listening to audiobooks, and I was like, I'm a listener, not a reader, right? However, I read this book cover to cover, and there's 13 principles in this book, right? And I recently started going back to what those 13 principles were, and I was looking for the 13 principles in the book. And this is the reason I'm going back to read it, is because as I'm looking for these 13 principles in the book, where specifically they are, I realized that the whole book is the 13 principles. Each chapter is one principle, right? But the first principle in that book is desire, right? You have to want something, you have to visualize it, right?
Yes.
And then everything else, your actions after that, is to go and get it. So you saw yourself in that house getting that coffee because it was cold outside, and you did everything you need to do. You even talked to a Klansman to get some coffee. And so like I think that's where this conversation started earlier off camera, was a lot of people, the youth included,
that we've come across
are they're saying that they want specific things in their life, but they're not going after them for whatever reason, and they're not visualizing, I can have this thing, and I can have it because I want it, and because I can think about how to get to that spot. So after you want the thing, then your actions after that is to go and align yourself with how to get it.
When I was growing up and I lived in the projects, there's a big joke about why are there so many Cadillacs in the project, and it's because these people did not want to seem and appear poor, and they wanted a different identity. So they did anything and everything that they could in order to break this stereotype about people in the ghetto don't have anything. And so that was their outward way of showing it, because they said, if I have a Cadillac, then you'll see me differently. And the same thing happened with the Klansmen. I said, if I can get in there and break bread and have coffee with you, not only will I have coffee with you, but I'll be warm just like you.
Yeah.
You know, to conclude on that particular story, at the end, that guy told me to come back anytime. I was welcome. And I thought it was the funniest thing. And as I walked out the door, I knew I was never going to go back there because I had my last cup of coffee.
In that spot, anyway.
In that spot.
Right. But you saw something you wanted.
Yes.
And you went after it. And I think that's the biggest part of my frustration, again, just to keep coming back to it with, you know, and I've been in it just even probably recently, right? We've talked about just owning up to who you are.
Yes.
And what part of, what do you want to be known for? What kind of work do you want to be known for? And if you're always acknowledging to yourself and other people the work that you don't want to be known for, then you're just going to be pushing those people away. So from this millennial standpoint, or what's the other, Gen Z. It sounds like a Dragon Ball Z episode.
They just skipped over why.
Huh?
They just skipped over why.
Right. I don't even know. I don't know why.
Now, the reason why they skipped over why, because why is a question. And so nobody wants to answer that question.
But I think what we're seeing is just that urge, and I kind of lost my spot a little bit, but keep finding reasons to dig into what it is that you want to do and what it is, the work you're trying to be known for.
Sure.
And once you get to that point, you're able to, it connects you with all these other people to get you to where you want to be.
Especially that part about connecting, because oftentimes that person that you're seeking can't serve you for whatever reason. Their hands may be tied, or they may not do the things that you do exactly. But everyone knows someone else, and as long as you're plugging in, people know that you want it. They're going to help you get it.
Right.
At the same time, the more you make excuses as to why you can't have it, then you're going to have another group of people that are going to help you not get it.
And that's and that is the point I was trying to make before. And I've had that happen a bunch of different times. I've known people who and I, like I say, I've done it myself, but I've known people who are like, hey, you know, I'm doing this other thing in my life, but I don't really want people to know about it because it may conflict with where I'm going, right? And I said to them, I was like, well, if you don't want people to know about it, then you're not going to get work doing that thing.
That's correct.
Right? And that dawned on me this week, or this last couple of weeks too, is just pushing ideas away of who we are, who I am. I wasn't getting the work that I want.
Sure, so, you're not going to get it.
Almost immediately of pushing those ideas away, I think you change. If you can change your thinking on it, then you put yourself in this position where that work starts to come, those connections start to come, the people that you want to meet show up.
Outside of $1 million cash, I've gotten close, but usually the things I ask for the things I ask for and the things I work toward, I get.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah.
I get them.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because of your connections?
Not well. First of all, you have to have a connection.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make a connection,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not making that connection, then I won't have any connections in order to fulfill my fulfillment in a sense. So what it is that I put things out there. I said, hey, look, guys, right now I'm in need of a large monitor because we're out of. My monitor is going bad. Next thing I know, a guy calls me up and said, "Hey, we're getting rid of some monitors. Would you like one?" And I don't mean people are giving me things, but what I'm saying in the likes is that when I put things out there and people know that I'm working towards something,
right,
people will jump on board.
Right.
And again, conversely, when people know that I ain't about nothing, then those people will, the other set of people will jump on board as well.
And they're happy to spread the word.
And they are happy to say you ain't about nothing.
Right.
And by the way, I know that's a double negative, folk.
That brings me to that, like I said, I was reading the book, and that's one of the biggest points in the book too, is once you become aware of something, once it's in your line of sight, then you can only after that point can you go at that thing. Yes,
absolutely.
So once you've made someone aware that you need a monitor, whether you're going to buy it or not, isn't the point. The point is the awareness is there. Now other people know how to interact with you with regard to that thing or that job or that connection. So putting yourself in situations where with people that you may at first don't see the point in being connected to, and offering help in some sort of way makes them aware that you exist, but at the same time it makes it aware that they know where you're trying to go. Now you're working to get to a certain place, and they show up for you.
A phrase that someone that my recent internship passed on to me was, "You're never going to get a GET without an ASK."
Right.
And that can kind of apply to so many more situations than just asking for what you want.
Right.
And it can expand to getting those connections, because you're never going to get those connections if you don't go out and ask for them or put yourself out there and take the initiative in order to make the contact.
Right. And I think these days you don't really get the get until you actually start giving too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You have to give something to be able to get something back in return. But Mason has
this kind of goes perfectly with what you were just saying of like for millennials and Gen X Z, whatever, for young adults, what do you recommend if they're graduating high school, in college, graduating college, whatever, and they're trying to figure out the things that they like, but they're still maybe like, I don't know, is this a good idea? Do I want to do this the rest of my life? I don't know. Figuring that out, what do you like, or getting the experience or getting the connections, how do you recommend that they go about doing it?
And maintaining them as well.
Right. That's the hardest part, is maintaining relationships when you're younger, because you only know how to maintain the ones that are like standing right in front of you, and the people on the other part of the world don't really mean anything, right? Until you see them. But I think when you're that young, coming out of high school specifically, I think it's hard to focus on one thing. And even if you know you want to get out of school and be a comedian, right? And I'm going to be a comedian the rest of my life. I still think it's your responsibility to try different aspects of the comedy world and figure out like if you like political things, or if you want to talk about more satirical things, or like just find out and try different levels of that type of work. In addition to that, you're probably, especially as a comedian, you're going to have to work a bunch of other jobs.
and let's just,
so it's going to be a lot of things you have to try.
Let me push that out a little bit further. Now, let's go to a comedian analogy. When you are wanting to be a comedian,
right,
and you decide what I'm going to do in the daytime is I'm going to pick strawberries for 12 hours a day. And then I'm going to go be a comedian. That's counter to what you say you really want to do.
Right.
As a comedian, what I will do is I will go to those particular venues and I will sweep the floors at those venues. I will wash the dishes at those venues to be around the comedians.
Right.
But if I'm picking strawberries, the only thing I'm going to know about is strawberries.
Right.
So
I can't make that many jokes about strawberries.
You probably could.
You probably could.
You probably could. You just won't be making the jokes to people who want to hear them. You'll be making the jokes at the strawberries.
Only gig is the Strawberry Festival.
That is my whole point to a young person. If there's something that you do want to do, then put yourself in that environment no matter what.
Right.
No matter what. But if you're not quite sure as to what you want to do, then put yourself in every situation. Every situation is a yes, is a yes. And once it becomes a yes, then you can figure out, no, I really don't want that.
Right.
And you'll also find out who you are and what you're made of as to whether your work ethics are, I can work 14 hours a day and still push on, or, I could only do 2 hours a day and I have to sleep for the rest and be with my friends.
Right.
My so-called friends who are also waiting on the job and who will dump your, a double asterisk, will dump you the moment they get a job.
Yeah. And which is hilarious because a lot of people, and I think this is specifically a young person problem right now, is they want to work 2 hours, 3 hours out of the day, and they want to make $1 million. And just mathematically, that doesn't work unless you invent an app or you invent a product that just blows off the shelf.
The problem with inventing that product, if you don't market it some kind of way and get it out, nobody's going to know about it.
Right.
I think the reason people think that's what they can do is because they see these influencers and YouTubers and Instagram whatevers, and all that the audience sees is a post every day.
Right.
And so they're thinking, oh, all I have to do is take a picture, come up with a creative, caption, and I'm in. And they don't see all of the behind the scenes work that goes into every single aspect of YouTube videos or Instagram or Twitter or anything.
Right.
Because all that we see on social media, on the internet, which is all that we're accosted with every second of every day, is the good things in life and not the hard work.
And that's why you have to be part of, again, this journey of going after the things you want. You have to be a detective. You have to be an investigator. I use these words they're in my lexicon all the time because that's what you have to be. If you know that all you see is the glitz and glamour and you don't get to see the person falling down and crying, you should go and investigate that and find that, right? So that you see that there's actual context, or you actually see there's a story leading up to this photo. Most of the times we get mad at successful people when they make moves because the default answer is, well, you're rich. And it's like, yeah, I'm rich now, but
It wasn't before.
Right. It took me like 20 years to get here. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a journey we're on now. Like you're still making it there. And you have to put it upon yourself to learn as much about what you want to do and dig up those stories behind those things to make context for yourself. I think that's your number one responsibility, is to figure out why do I want to do this and how are these people doing it? If you really ask how and you pull back the curtain on a lot of those influencers, you will be shocked to find out that they're not doing much more. You know what I mean? Like the only thing they're doing differently is doing. Right? Right? That's the only thing they're doing differently.
There's a documentary on Netflix about Instagram people.
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
There was some girl who she was really famous on Vine before that died. And then some other this guy who did club promos and he was just pouring liquor on girls and all this stuff. It was bonkers. Then you see the backside of it, she like was losing her mind,
right.
was living with her mom, super depressed, like hated herself, all this stuff, which was the absolute opposite of this person she portrayed on Vine with her videos. She was trying to be an actress, she was trying to be a comedian, she was trying all these things, and it was so sad. And the guy promoting parties, that's all he did was nightlife party stuff, and he was just like, I just want someone to actually love me. Like, it was so sad.
Because being an influencer isn't rooted in being in what we truly are.
It's rooted in reality. It's rooted in a fantasy that people will click on or like, because that's all that your income is based on, is people liking what you post and what you share. So no one's going to want to see your sadness.
The other side of that is that the people who are clicking on that, I mean, what is it that they want so badly? Let me wrap this up. It's just taking us back to the ghetto, that Cadillac deal.
Yeah.
Once
I have two theories on that though.
Yeah,
but on the Cadillac.
Once you go and see, as you mentioned, investigating, seeing what's behind that Cadillac and the reason why they're portraying themselves in a certain manner, and you see that their kids are not eating and they're living in a roach-infested environment, doesn't mean that everybody's doing that. But I'm talking about the people that will say that my Cadillac is who I am. When you go behind that, you'll find out that that's all that they have, and they're not going anywhere.
Sure.
And the guy that's driving a little beat up Toyota that's going to work every day, who's saying, I am going to be somebody, instead of this is who I am, which is the Cadillac, will eventually make connections.
Right.
And not only form those connections, but bind them and then go somewhere and actually do something.
No, I get it. I mean, that's literally our life sometimes is, we live in this tiny apartment, right? And when I first moved in there, in my mind, my ego was like, don't show this tiny ass apartment, right? But then that's faking it.
Yes.
Right? And when people discover the fake, like that you're faking it, then they stop messing with you, right? But if you show what's real from the beginning and they get to see you climb up out of that situation, then you're connected with that person on a level where they're always going to be there with you. So like your followers, your viewers, the people who are going to give you jobs in the future, when they see you start from a modest place, but you got big dreams and big ambitions, and they see you working towards them, people love the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
People love to follow a journey.
People love the journey.
But you know the worst part about that? I mean, the absolute worst part about that is when people see you living in a small, modest place and they see that you are not a struggle, but you are strengthening yourself. What they find out is, on the other side of that, someone says, hey, let's market that. Tiny places to live, and let's make $1 million. Right. And they do. Right. And they start selling these tiny place homes and make $1 million.
Right. And it really just comes down to what's your focus?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to put your attention towards? And then showing up every single time, no matter how young or old you are, is really showing up, taking money off the table. Money's going to be there.
It's going to be
right.
there.
But there's things you got to learn. If you're at a point where you're miserable at your job or you're miserable in your career, obviously money isn't the answer. So like you have to put these other things into practice before you can start making the money elsewhere to get and getting paid for the things that you actually really want to do. And that's why you got to run hard at it. And if there's an opportunity, you knock on the door first and say, hey, I'm gonna show up and film your project, because guess what? I don't want anybody else to do it. And I want this knowledge, I want this experience. And then now I can bring someone else into that spot and kind of help fill the position that I'm doing, and then do the work that I really want to do, which is dissect stories and pull the curtain back on what's actually happened and show people the journey.
And if the thing about it, if there isn't an opportunity, make one.
Right.
Make one.
I think that's the best way to end this episode, this long talk.
Oh man, did we go on?
We went on. We probably could just go for like another couple days on this topic for me. But Robert Rostick.
Yeah. before we sign off, I want to thank Lumiere Rostick and Mason Gearing for chiming in on our show today.
Thanks for having us.
And we want to make sure that you understand that it's okay to quit your job for a moment and be unmanageable.
Absolutely. With that being said, I'm Bevo.
And I'm Robert Rostick.
And thank you guys for tuning into episode 48.
48, yeah, almost to that half-century mark.
Oh, man, I'm loving it.
All right.
Raising Unmanageables. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.